So let's talk about the topic today. And growth is literally a conversation I am having daily at the moment. And it seems more difficult than ever at the moment. I'm not sure what is going on. And I'm thinking maybe the privacy laws, it's helping people having difficulty accessing data, maybe building slowed. Everyone just seems to be saying that they're really struggling with growth at the moment. And are you seeing that as an issue across a lot of the rent roll business owners that you are working with as well?
Absolutely. It's the biggest thing. And if you look at like total numbers of properties under management across all my clients' portfolios, it's only gone one way. Very rarely will you'll see an agency that's increased in numbers. And the ones that are increasing in numbers are generally ones that are in those growth areas. Those more established, like inner city areas, for example, where they're growing organically generally is off the back of one, a strong sales team. So they've got to have a big sales team that are transacting properties frequently where they're presented with opportunities where investors have purchased properties. But otherwise, in the absence of that, it's all on price. So we've found that people are just competing on price. We'll do it for free for 3 months. We'll do it for free for 6 months if you bring our management across it. That's it, and which is it's flawed. No one really wins in that scenario apart from the landlord for a few months. And yeah, that's what I'm finding is it's based on price if you want to grow, which is in a lot of businesses where they've got to focus on their profitability, it doesn't make sense to do that.
Absolutely. And that is definitely what is happening. A lot of business owners that I have been working with are really feeling the pinch financially and are not sure where to go. And I think retention in this current marketplace is probably one of the best ways to grow, is not minimizing that loss. But let's talk about, obviously you're in rent roll financing, and a lot of people think that buying rent rolls is the solution to their growth issues. But you believe that if you can't grow organically, then there is probably no point in buying a rent roll. Is that what you're?
Yeah, absolutely. Or even in the absence of actually having a plan for growth. So people will buy a rent roll, and I talk to people daily about their current position, and they might be, I'm at 200 properties under management. I feel like I've hit a ceiling. I can't go beyond that. And they're like, if I buy another 100, that'll get me over that hump. Now, it does initially, but you have to remember that 10% of your managements are getting lost every year through sales, through mismanagement, through people moving back in. It's around that 10% mark. And if you don't have a plan to replenish that, the bigger you get, the more you need to replenish. So at 1,000 managements, you need to find 100 managements every year just to stay still. So it's all well and good to say, well, I've got enough of a deposit to go and buy another 500 managements. But if you don't have a plan around how you're going to replenish the ones you're losing, because if you can't break 100 and grow beyond 100, when you're at 200 and you're losing 20 a year, you're just going to go backwards. So you're buying a rent roll effectively just to lose management. So I always say to people, yes, it is definitely a strategy to buy and to grow and to get over that hump. But what are your actual plans in the business? What are you going to change fundamentally to keep the growth going?
So what can you give us some tips around that then? What are some of the best ways that you've seen business owners grow their rent rolls organically over the years? And how do you stop that natural attrition? How do you, I mean, you're not going to stop the natural attrition, but how are you going to replace those ones that you lose through that process?
That's the million dollar question. And I'd love to have a crystal ball to work out what the ultimate answer is. But having a bigger rent roll does give you a bit more cash flow to be able to afford to perhaps buy a BDM, to pay for a BDM, for them to help grow organically. But how are they growing? Because what is a BDM? Somebody who sits in a big sales team and just shuffles paper from the sales agents to the property managers, or is a BDM who's somebody who's physically out talking to referral partners all the time, to accountants, financial planners, mortgage brokers around, look, you finance the person to buy an investment property. Can we have an opportunity to look at managing that property thereafter? So that is what I think a true BDM should be. And having a bigger rent roll does give you the cash flow to be able to afford that. So that is the strategy that a lot of people use is like, well, if I do get bigger, I'll have additional cash flow to be able to fund that. But people need to have a plan before actually buying it. And this is why I think there's not many property management only businesses that are extremely large. there's always another referral source or revenue stream to that business to be able to refer them back in. So it's something that if you are going to buy and you haven't been able to crack that growth, then what are you going to change if you were to acquire to make sure that you can maintain and continue to grow that rent roll?
So what do you think property management only businesses can grow large rent rolls without the addition of like the sales referrals coming in? What's your
The num
experiences around that?
the number of businesses that are pure, in a pure sense, property management only that are large are few and far between. It's been tried time and time again, and it just doesn't work. It's there needs to be the referral source through the sales, but also like if you've got 1,000 managements in your property management only, and you're losing 100 potential sales listings off the back of that every single year, which if you're a sales and rentals business makes absolute sense. It's very hard to grow and be profitable in that instance. I've got a couple of businesses to look after that are around that 1,000 properties under management that are predominantly rentals only. Their strategy is different. Their strategy is actually put apart a part of their profit every single year. So they've got a bit of a pool of cash that they can go and acquire more rentals when a small parcel of 50 or 100 comes up. And they think that buying 50 or 100 in small parcels is actually cheaper than paying for a BDM and to bring them in. So, but the only, I guess, there is a fear of the unknown. They may not be as clean as a rental that you may have brought in organically. But in saying that, this person's built a successful business on the back of small acquisitions, parking cash aside out of their profit to be able to go and invest back into the business to buy more rentals to top it back up to that 1,000 property mark.
And do you think that's a good strategy? Does it works, or is it a risky strategy? And is there a different way that you would recommend that people do that?
It's risky. Look, each business has got their own business plan, their own agenda. But I just think that you'll never find those small parcels that are 50 or 100 in that core area that you want to be in. And then you end up buying 50 or 100 properties that are all over the place. The difficulty with that then is when you want to exit, who's going to buy a business? Because the local Ray White or LJ Hawker or Harcourt's office that is in that core suburb may not want to, and they might be in central Brisbane, they may not want to pick up 20 or 30 managements that are in Caboolture. The reason for that is, look, they might be rented okay. They might be okay properties, but more than likely, when that landlord decides that they're going to sell, they're not going to sell with an agency that's 50 kilometers away. They're going to sell with the local agent who understands that particular market around what's selling, what their anticipated value is of their property. The person who is 50 kilometers away isn't going to be an expert in that area. They can't be experts in every area, and they may not yield the best result for that landlord when the time comes to sell. So I'm a big believer that it needs to, if you are doing rentals and sales, it needs to be extremely focused. It needs to be in your area because when it does come up, when those properties do come up for sale, they're in your market. And more than likely, if you're doing a good job as a rental manager, they will go to you first when it comes time to sell.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with that. And I have had portfolios as all over the place, Gold Coast, Sunshine Coast, Caboolture, and ended up selling off different pockets because it was just too hard, too far to manage. And you're right, they do sell with somebody where I'm in Ipswich at Caboolture, we're not going to sell with me. So
Absolutely.
yeah, but that's another strategy in itself, though. If you can build up a good portfolio organically in those areas and then sell them off, if you've got good relationship and referral partners in those areas. I had a great relationship with a developer who every pocket that he built in, he referred all those properties back to us. So that was a great strategy for us when we first started out. But then as you get bigger, like you said, the bigger your rent roll, the more problems that you have. So yeah. If you're ready to be a super organised, focused and productive property manager, buckle up because Colmio is about to revolutionise the way that you work. Colmio is the driving force behind property management excellence in residential real estate. Now picture this, a comprehensive end-to-end system designed to be the beating heart of your property management tasks, manage your properties, owners and tenants, and handle payments, inspections, and even marketing listings without leaving the platform. Comio is designed to be an all-in-one solution to all your property management needs. And here's the game changer. Comio isn't just software. It's been awarded the most innovative prop tech scale up in 2023. Yes, you heard it right. Colmio has been recognised for their groundbreaking approach to property management software. How good is that? So property managers, whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting out, dive into the future of property management with Colmio. You can book in a demo with the team today and go in their weekly draw for a Prezi gift card worth $100. All you need to do is to head to the link colmio.com/thatpropertymum, and Colmio is KOLMEO.
Well, you have to think as well that if you had 100 rentals, if you had 1,000 rentals, and you might have 50 of them in the Gold Coast, for example, and if you're in Ipswich and you got 50 on the Gold Coast, 50 is probably enough to have not so much, I wouldn't say set up a satellite office, but like when you've got people doing routine inspections and stuff, doing it in clusters, reducing the cost to actually serve those properties. Because if you've got a staff member, if you're making $1,600 a year on a rental down at Pimpamar, for example, and you're based out of Ipswich, if you actually calculate the time and money it costs to manage that one property, which is so far out of your geographic area, and you're only making $1,600 a year from that property, if you calculate the staffing time it takes to get 3 hours of staff expense, plus the fuel in the car, plus everything else that goes along with it, you're not making any money out of that property. So you have to think about, yes, it might be a strategic relationship with a landlord, but are you actually going to be making any money whatsoever out of this property if it's so far out of your core market? A lot of people think that if they are returning, it is a low rental return, but if that property is going to come up for sale in the next 2 or 3 years, they might go, well, look, if I know that I'm going to sell it, I may persevere with it because there's a sales commission that'll come off the back of it. But it's something that you just have to be mindful of when you do have BDMs that are out there growing on your behalf. Whereas if you've got the strategy whereby you're acquiring, you can be a little bit more selective, but there's no perfect rent roll. And that's what a lot of people get caught up when they are buying. They're looking for the perfect rent roll. There is no such thing. There's always going to be properties that are a little bit left to field, but that's just the nature of the way that it works.
I think that's a great point you raised there. Growth, you think constantly of adding more properties to your portfolio. But if you're actually really smart with your numbers, you can actually make more profit, grow your business or grow your profit margin by working really smartly with your numbers. Like you said, yeah, letting go of those ones that aren't bringing in enough income for you or that are costing you too much. That's a great way to actually grow your business, or adding more fees, or tweaking the fees that your management fees, or adding in other fees is another great way to grow your business. So would that be something you would look at in terms of if somebody was saying to you, I want to buy a rent roll? Is that a conversation you have with people? Well, obviously you look at what they're currently doing, and maybe just talk to us through that process that you work with people. I'm looking to buy a rent roll. I've got an existing agency. What is the process that you would go through with me? Yeah, and then advise me on.
Yeah, look, the absolute first thing that I do with all my clients is understand their position at the moment. Like, I understand what if they've got an existing agency. I get blown away every day with people not understanding what the true value is of their rent roll. And it's something that, look, to get a formal valuation, you have to go through a valuer to do that. But just even have a basic understanding of, look, you might be in central Brisbane. It might be, if you've got $200,000 of recurring income, at a 3 times multiple, that's worth $600,000. I still come across people that don't understand that what they've already got is worth something. They're talking to their current bank saying, well, I want to buy something worth $1 million. I've got to come up with a 30% deposit or 40% deposit, but not understanding that the way that they should be looking at it is the combined value of the rent roll. I've got an asset here worth 600. I'm buying something worth $1 million. Combined, that's worth $1.6 million. And the banks will lend 60 to 70% of the value of that 1.6. So a lot of people get scared off going, well, I've got to put in all this money. Things are tight. Where I'm going to find $300,000 as a deposit? That a lot of times they don't need to. A lot of times people don't realize that they can use sometimes the equity in their property or an investment property to be able to come up with their deposit. It's a strategy I don't normally recommend, but for a lot of people whereby they might be new, like I'm seeing a lot of property managers come to me at the moment who are wanting to go on their own, and they're coming to me saying, look, I know that I can grow organically. I've done BDM. I can, yeah, but I need that cash flow to get me going. And I want to buy 100 managements to be able to know that I've got some income coming through because I need to live. They may use their property as security. I've done one recently up north, very similar to that scenario. They bought 100 managements, financed the whole amount. They just had the property as security. Within 3 months, they've already put on another 40 managements. So huge growth. But they wanted that cash flow and that safety net to do it. They didn't have the cash to do it, but they had equity in property. So everyone's scenario is different, but there's definitely, and also like the banks are very different in terms of what their processes are too. So for that person, there was only one or two banks that would look at a client like that who was effectively a startup, but there are a lot of other banks that do look at rent roll financing.
Perfect. So ideally, when somebody's looking at buying a rent roll, is there an ideal number that if they've got a number already that they've grown organically, yeah, what is that sweet spot that you would recommend that they look at an acquisition?
So I always say to people when they're starting out, like the ideal scenario is if you can grow to 100 organically or 150 organically without any debt. And if you can do that without having any debt in your business and you go again and you feel that because that shows you one, that you can grow. And if you can grow to organically to 100, 150, you can grow. So that's the first thing, I look at. Once you add on another 100, a lot of that's profit. So if you're already paying rent, if you're already paying the increase in electricity for having another staff member perhaps, or a VA that's helping assist with the back office, if you're buying another 100, the costs are only minimal. So you're already paying all these costs. Where it doesn't work is if you've got 100 and you want to buy another 100, but that 100 involves having two more staff members, a new office, going into another whole area, like that's where it doesn't make sense. So if you keep it lean, keep it in your core area and not increase the costs, that's where it becomes profitable. And that's where I see businesses really succeed. But if you ask me in terms of an ideal sole director business, you're probably needing to be around that 300 properties under management to make okay money.
Can I ask you a quick favour before you leave this episode? Now, we all know how important reviews are for businesses these days, and mine is no different. If you could spare just a minute to follow, rate and review this podcast, it would mean a lot to me. In fact, what would get me super excited is if you share this podcast with someone in the industry who you think might need to hear some of the episodes right now. And if you'd like to find out more about working with me or any of the products I have to help you start, grow or scale your property management business, head to my website, thatpropertymum.com.au, or check out the links in the show notes.